I mean, we haven't reached obviously the end point. I mean, Trump is still the president. He's still in
Right.
office,
Mm-hmm.
and there's still some hope. There's still some hope among Trump faithful
Mm-hmm.
that there's still somehow a way for President Trump
Mm-hmm.
to pull off a miracle and win this election
Mm-hmm.
by proving widespread voter and election fraud. Now, has this ever happened before in America's 244-year history?
So the biggest example I can think of, and it sounds like what you're asking is, have we ever had a situation where there was fraud and an election was basically overturned through some sort of Hail Mary play at the end?
Right.
And just wanted to get my sports analogy in there. So so we're not total nerds, right? We're both
Right,
sports
right.
guys too.
No, it's
So
not, yeah, it's definitely a Hail Mary. I can't think of
right,
any
right,
other. I can't think of any other play in sports that is
right, right.
as dramatic and
Yep.
as desperate as a Hail Mary attempt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so what I would say is that the biggest example we have here would be the 1876 presidential election. And so this is fascinating. This literally was a Hail Mary that actually worked. And so at the time you had Republican Rutherford Hayes and Democrat Samuel Tilden. And basically what happened was that on election night, Hayes thought he had lost because when the returns came in, Tilden had 184 electoral votes, and all he needed was one more to win the presidency. And Hayes had around 160. And the only way, or he had several votes
He had
less.
165 at the time.
165. The only way for him to win the presidency, for Hayes to win the presidency, was to win the four outstanding states. Now, the problem was that all four states came back with conflicted returns. So the Democrats and the Republicans both claimed those states. They even sent electors for those states. And so Hayes had to win both, but there was basically this standoff. Now, you have to remember, this was 11 years after the Civil War happened. So the wounds were still fresh. You know, veterans' wounds were literally still healing. And the North and South still had a lot of tension. There was a lot of fear that another civil war would erupt. And, you know, a contested election would be kind of the perfect spark that would light the whole powder keg. And so what happened was that the election dragged on, and there was no winner. And this was the only time that Congress literally had to concoct a way to figure out the election. They actually had to create a remedy outside of the U.S. Constitution. So they created a commission, an electoral commission, to basically decide who wins the presidency. And this was completely uncharted territory. It's never happened before or since. And the commission was 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans, and 1 independent. And lo and behold, they literally just kept deadlocking. They couldn't figure out a winner. And the inauguration was in March, and the weeks went on, and the inauguration was literally days away. And so there was no president. And meanwhile, Tilden all he had to do was win 1 electoral vote, just 1 state, he wins the presidency. But what happened was that the Democrats tried to win over the 1 independent by electing him to office, to Senate. They elected him to Senate. The person who replaced him was a slightly to the Republican side person. And from then on, the commission voted for every state 8-7 to go to Hayes. And Hayes won the presidency 185 to 184. And it's funny because there was all sorts of corruption. There was all sorts of fraud. Literally, the states that were deciding the election just threw out votes. The Democrats just threw out votes. Republicans just threw out votes. It was just, I mean, the election, whoever would have won, both sides would have had a grievance.
Right.
And that was the only time that anything like that has happened where the Hail Mary really worked. And so I would say that it would be very difficult for Donald Trump to pull it off.